Well, hello everyone, welcome to day 2, I guess day 1. I'm going to count yesterday as day 0 in London. Just gotten off the train. I had a lovely wee breakfast. We saw Harry Potter last night. That video will be somewhere around there. But you see here I've hit number 2 on my Monopoly list, and that's the Strand. And apparently Northumberland Abbey is just over that way, so I might go and check that out soon. But today we've got about I think it's a 5-hour walking tour around London, which will be fun. And then tonight I've got a Jack the Ripper tour, which will be really fucking interesting. I'm really looking forward to that. So yeah, Trafalgar Square is actually just over there. So let's wander on over to Trafalgar Square, shall we? At least I think it's down there. We'll find out soon enough. It certainly does look like Trafalgar Square. Yeah, there's the column. You've got your typical front boxes, which of course London is quite famous for. I'll tell you what, the tube is actually a lot better than what most people, or what most English people say it is. You know, it's quite timely. Gets you around basically anywhere you need to be, so I mean it makes sense to use it. But I will say, if you are coming to London, do get yourself a an Oyster card. It makes things a lot easier, just being able to scan in and scan out as you go through, and you can top it up at times as well. So I mean it all works out and it makes a whole heap of sense. It makes it just that wee bit cheaper. But yeah, if you look behind me there now, and that big tower there is Trafalgar Square. So yeah, what a load of fun. Ooh, and just over there behind me, where you see over that way, that's the Northumberland Abbey. So that's another one ticked off. We've just ticked off two more Monopoly squares. So yeah, it should be a great time from here on out. But for the moment, I'm going to leave you guys to it. Or actually, we'll cross over and we'll have a look at the fountain that is in Trafalgar Square. And apparently a giant ice cream as well. Bear with me while we wait at the lights here. Oh yeah, and I am wearing one of my favourite outfits today as well. It's a great sweatsuit this. But yeah, so as I turn around this way, sorry I do keep looking at my phone because that's where this sort of camera is showing me. Over there is the National Gallery? Yeah, National Gallery. And this is Trafalgar Square again. Keep saying that, it is me just a wee bit nuts been here again. So yeah, we've got Major General Sir Henry Havelock as he fights against the IRA behind us there now. But yeah, I think I'll leave it there for now, and I'll come back to you guys when I figure out what I'm doing next. So yesterday I said that I found Leicester Square, and it was just a station, unfortunately, but I found actual Leicester Square this time. Ignore the big vans there, they're obviously setting up for something, or working on the fountain by the looks of it. Fountains Direct. Such a British name for a company too. Fountains Direct. I think everything's direct here in the UK, but it is what it is. It's always just a little bit funny to me anyway, that everything's sort of direct. And we've got William Shakespeare Monument here, which is quite cool. And if we come down here, we've got a certain Rowan Atkinson, or Mr Bean if you will. yeah, some quite cool little statues down here. So we'll come over to this other one over here that is, well, by the looks of it, it's one Mr. Charlie Chaplin. And, yeah, that's him there. Oh, Mr. Chaplin. Yeah, lots of random little things here. The official London Theatre ticket booth. To my right here, which is a little bit interesting. And I suppose we'll go over and say good day to old mate Paddington Bear while we're here. And so there's a few random little tidbits here. And that's Paddington Bear there. Hey mate. And there's a few around the outside as well. Quite a cool wee square, really, isn't it? Sort of just plonking itself in the middle of town. A couple of random little statues around the course. And we'll just go visit our last one. There's a few more, but I think this will be the last one that I'll share with you for the moment anyway. But this is popping there to finish it all up for us. So yeah, that's Leicester Square. So just another little quick one here. So I found that behind me there is Lego World. I'm not really sure if you can see it there, but on the opposite side of the walkway we spin around, and this is what I find random. M&M World. Why the fuck do you need an M&M World? They obviously must make a fair bob or two just from this place alone. But yeah, M&M World. Why not, I guess? Why not? Right, so we take another one off the list there, because over my shoulder just there is Piccadilly. Complete with Cupid shooting an arrow. But there's also something else here that I thought was quite funny. For those of you that are Spurs fans, just behind me there, around there somewhere, is the Tottenham store. For Spurs, just literally called Lily Whites. Yeah, so that's the thing. Which is quite cool. So we're gonna oh, the other thing is that street right there is Regent Street. So I guess that's another one off the Monopoly board. Taking a fair few off today. I'm almost definitely not going to get to them all. I've been at Euston Station, which I guess is Euston Street on the Monopoly board as well. So I guess I'm going to have to get proof of that though before I can just say that I've done it. But like I said, I'm probably not going to get to all of them, but I'll do my best, I guess. And I'll try my hardest. I'll have fun regardless. That's the main thing. But the other thing I wanted to point out just quickly is as we look at Piccadilly behind us there, just all the flags and stuff that are up over the street there is quite interesting, I think, and quite random. So yeah, that's that. I know I keep looking down because I'm controlling the GoPro from my phone and I'm not experienced at doing this, so I'm doing my best. Okay, so I've finally made it to my London sites walking tour. We've got about 3 hours of this, so no doubt there'll be a fair few clips and a fair few photos which will be inserted somewhere around this point. I found a couple of South Africans over there, Nicole and Andy. So they sort of found me out due to my outfit, and part of the reason I like wearing this is so I don't get missed. So I'm not going to get left behind on this one.
And he spoke some Afrikaans, which is impressive.
And I got to freak them out a bit by speaking Afrikaans, so that was fun. But we've just stopped again now, so I'll pause this for a minute. Yeah, Oh, thank you.
They are beautiful. Look at these. Oh,
So all of these highly trained guards and their police escorts. Surely those things on the top of their bonces will get really fucking annoying.
those black ones are funny.
Wow. That's a bit rough.
Views of the people of the subjects. They do that through Parliament. But Charles I didn't like what Parliament was telling him and refused to consult with them. At one point tried to have some of the Parliament members arrested for opposing his policy, so he was behaving a bit like a dictator rather than a constitutional monarch. And yeah, eventually Parliament got together an army and tried to get rid of him, and succeeded as well. So that was the Civil War. Yeah, it's 140 years before the French Revolution, 170 years before the Russian Revolution, but it only lasted about 10 years. I mean, after about 10 years it was decided that what Charles I was replaced with was kind of no better anyway. So, but I'll talk more about that later on. Let's go further down Whitehall.
So this is Whitehall or Whitehall, where King Charles I was executed. And just around this corner, I've been told, this is what's left of Whitehall Palace, and it was just outside one of these windows where he stepped out onto scaffolding and was executed. So yeah, history, yay! So we've just finished our 3-hour walking tour of London, and now we're in line for that place there, which is Westminster Abbey. I've managed to con the South Africans to coming with me. These lovely guys.
Because he actually likes us. We actually cool.
Yeah, they're actually alright. For Saffers, they're not too bad.
Except our accent apparently is a bit weird.
Yeah, these guys.
Gars.
Not guys, gars.
Gars.
Spelled G-A-R-S, not G-U-Y-S apparently.
What was the other one?
But yeah, so we'll be heading in there in a minute or two.
In a minute of 20 or 30.
Yeah. Well, in this video it'll be about 10 seconds from now, something like that. But yeah, it's about
reality. It's about 40 minutes.
Reality about 35-40 minutes. But yeah, it's one of those things. You know, you're in London. You got to go through Westminster Abbey. You know, a whole bunch of very famous tombs are here. Including kings and queens and authors and all sorts. So yeah, that should be a lot of fun. I'll see you soon. Rightio, so I've had to leave the South Africans behind after Westminster Abbey. I went for a chat, finally went our separate ways I should say, finally sorted out my data issues that have been happening on my phone. Cost me a wee bit, but at least it's sorted now, and that's the main thing. So I've managed to find my way through the Thames. I'm sure you can see that behind me, and over there behind me there's the London Eye over there somewhere. I keep saying somewhere because it's actually really tough to see on the little GoPro screen, and not have to keep looking at my phone, which shows me a wee bit of a bigger picture. But you can still see the London Eye behind me over there somewhere. Over there, I think. I don't know. It's all opposites when using this, but I am just an amateur. It's not like I'm a professional blogger or anything like that. But yeah, so went and sorted all my the data issues I've been having with my phone, and that's been sorted for the rest of Europe now, which is absolutely fantastic. Means I don't have to worry about quite so much anymore. And yeah, again, it's the Thames. As you can see, it's really dirty. It's not exactly the cleanest of rivers. And over my right shoulder here, you might be able to see the Shard. So I just got a notification on the phone, so got a little bit distracted there. But yeah, so I'm currently on my way to a Jack the Ripper tour, which promises to be a whole heap of fun, learning about some of the darker sides of London, which anybody who knows me knows that is 100% my jam. So I'm very much looking forward to it. It only goes for about 2 hours, starts at 7 PM, finishes about 9, but then I'll be heading home and trying to edit all of this down into a watchable format, and hopefully not make it 3 hours long, because that's what it feels like it's going to be at this point. But yep, on the way to the Jack the Ripper tour, and hopefully I'll get some footage while we're going around doing that, as well as some photos. There's always going to be photos, but hopefully old mate doesn't mind being videoed while he's making speeches and stuff like that, just like Tim was this morning. But yeah, I'll catch you soon, and we'll see how this goes. And actually, in that last little bit, I forgot to mention that I've found a replacement for Opie, who my lovely girlfriend actually crocheted a much larger octopus to take with me, and his little buddy Cthulhu, but I somehow managed to leave them back home in Christchurch, which is very annoying, because I wanted something to represent my girlfriend being with me, but unfortunately not. But managed to find Opie here, who's a pretty similar colour to Opie, so yeah, make the best of an annoying situation, really, but we're gonna have some fun regardless.
From this area of London, from Whitechapel. My mother's family have been here 150 years. What that means is they were around in the 1880s when all this was going on. I'm going to mention my family in the context of what life was like back then. I'm not going to mention my family in the context of the murders, because obviously my family had nothing to do with it. You can't prove it. Finally, the other thing I promised this evening is lots and lots of old architecture. Now, where we stood now, you're seeing some of the new buildings, but that's not where we're going tonight. Tonight we're going back in time to the heart of old Whitechapel, and I promised to show you many, many buildings that were standing in 1888. I'm even going to show you some streets that look virtually identical to how they looked back then. So, in conclusion, I promise you a murder mystery, social history, and lots of old architecture. Are you ready?
Yep.
Yeah. There's a lot of them. Can you put your hand up if you're from the United States of America? I felt that in the way you went. Yeah. I don't know what it is. Since a few months ago, because during the pandemic, I only had British people on my tour, and I'm British. I'm no shame in that, but if I do tours just for groups of British people, usually I go, "Are you ready?" And they go, "Yes." But there's this thing, people they go, "Yeah!" And I just say, as a tour guide, it's really good for my self-esteem. So please do keep that going. Now, to get people not from the United States in that vibe, I have found a little trick, actually. If you're not from the United States, can you imagine you've just had 5 pints of beer?
Why can't we just go grab 5 pints?
Yes, actually do it, yeah. So, with that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, I ask you again, are you ready?
Yeah!
Splendid, this way. I'm going to get something. Oh no, now the whole world is going to know about it. Are you a famous influencer? I've got a feeling you
No,
might be.
I'm really not.
Okay, not yet. This
No.
could be the video that
No.
breaks your...
This is where you go viral.
No.
Do you want to hear my theory as well? Are you
They
like
might take me.
Sorry?
Yes, but they might take me.
They might take you away. No worries. Okay, so listen, it's like the after party now, isn't it? I imagine that's what happens with the Rolling Stones. I've always wanted to stay after their show and just have Keith Richards on. Okay, here's a song, man. Well, here is my theory then, everybody. As I've been asked about this, I think the biggest mistake that they made, it's a common mistake back in the 1880s. Now, to set the scene as to my theory, you've got to remember, in the 1880s, their knowledge of psychology is not the same as the knowledge we have today. The word psychopath didn't even exist in the 1880s, and the concept and so on. The 1880s was a very, very prejudiced time. Now, obviously, we live in prejudiced times as well, but then you've got to remember, immediately, all of the police attention was thinking it's what they called a lowlife. And a lowlife was someone with less money and low morality. They were not looking for wealthy people. Now, when they thought it could be a doctor or whatever, but when they thought a doctor, they actually thought probably more likely a doctor that worked on a very kind of rudimentary, basic level. You know, I said like the medical myths about, yeah, if you're drunk, you won't get pregnant. The kind of doctor that would give that advice, they thought maybe could be the one. But otherwise, they were looking for poor people. Whereas I think the killer was wealthy. And specifically, I'm going to show you a picture now. This picture is from that year. It's of two actors that had a show in central London, in the nice part of London. There was a show on that summer, Dr. Jekyll and Mr Hyde. Some of you may have heard of Dr. Jekyll and Mr Hyde. This was the advertising picture. Not bad photoshopping for 1888, is it? So Dr. Jekyll and Mr Hyde, the basis of this story is a wealthy doctor who has a dark alter ego living inside him that comes out at night time. And this is why I think the police and society was fooled, because I think it was a guy just like this. Now, the writer of Dr. Jekyll and Hyde knew this, but most people didn't. Probably the killer, I think, was like this. He was well-spoken, polite, educated, wealthy, well-dressed, courteous. He was someone who went through life that no one would have thought, well, that's clearly a serial killer. As I say, I was joking earlier when I said, you know, the killer would be running around covered in blood, but really, that is what they were looking for, like this kind of depraved, crazy person walking the streets, when really, I think the problem was he was so respectable that they never would have believed this. Now, you get this now on documentaries. Do you ever watch documentaries about con artists that like trick their wife out of like $500,000? And they interview like the wife and they're like, I never saw this coming. And some of these people are amazing at it. And I think psychopaths especially, they give the impression of being so normal. And I think that's the point. Whereas the police and everyone's searching for this guy who's acting crazy, but actually it's the guy who's acting the most normal. Why do I think it's a doctor, by the way? I think partly because there's scales of doctors, but a lot of wealthy doctors that were born into wealthy families, I think. He had a lot of wealth. I do think he lived near Whitechapel, so he knew the streets, but probably just outside in a quiet neighbourhood. A quiet neighbourhood where he wouldn't really have been seen much. Also, I think he lived alone. Lived alone because there's no one to come home to spot him. But also, we now know if you take people, both major psychopaths or basically insane people as well, and you get them to live alone, they get worse and worse and worse. Whereas if there's someone around, I mean, they're not going to get better, they're always going to be a psycho, but there's someone to monitor them, right? But living alone, they get worse and worse. Have anyone seen the film The Shining with Jack Nicholson just going slowly getting worse and worse? Well, I think that's the case of them living alone. Now, I mentioned earlier, as I said, I try and keep the tour neutral and not put my own opinions on too much, but I mentioned with the tour earlier that when I said about cutting out the womb, that they thought, well, he's not done it in a very clinical way though, so it doesn't mean he's a doctor. But I think the reason it wasn't done in a perfect way is he wasn't being Dr. Jekyll when he did it, he was being Mr. Hyde. So he wasn't in doctor mode, he was in crazy mode. So his doctor brain was enough to get him in and know what he was doing, but he was in this frenzy mode. That's also why he does those two murders like this in the same night, because he goes into this mania. But in the daytime, like this guy in this story, he snapped out of it. And this was a really new concept to people back then. Sigmund Freud wasn't heard of by then. It was only in the early start of psychology. Now, a lot of what I'm saying, it's almost like common sense. Like if something like this happened today, we wouldn't immediately go, there's clearly a fairly poor person who's whatever. We would look at these different people, and we're much better now at profiling. Many things in the world have changed since then, but one thing that's definitely got better is forensics. Just to give you an idea of how forensics has changed since then, by the way, do you know what they did at this crime scene here? What they did at all the crime scenes after the murder? Well, what we do today, we're calling it off, right? Do you know what they did then? Wash it all away. The first thing they did at any crime scene was clean everything up and get everything back to normal so that crowds didn't gather. So the forensics was the opposite. Rather than like save everything and let's think about it, it's like, oh, wash it all away, get all that. So many aspects of forensics then were the opposite or very different. So we've got the forensics, and a lot of what I'm saying now is not sort of a revolutionary idea, but then they would have thought I was crazy to have suggested this. It was a really rich doctor who had a dark side, and they were like I said, the word psychopath didn't exist. Now, that's my theory. Maybe they would have thought it was me, and I would have been one of the people interrogated, but I would have had an alibi, don't you worry. I would have said I was tour guiding that night. Anyway, that's my theory, but I don't have the name, so I don't have enough time. I work quite a lot of hours doing my tours, and I do private research about social history. You saw I talked a lot about the social history of the area. I don't have the time to kind of do the go through all the names and so on. But if one of you can, and you solve it, now it's filming. It was on Jeremy's tour where you got the idea. Okay, there we go. Well, that's my theory. Now, has anyone got any other questions before we say goodnight to each other? As I say, midnight is my deadline.